Alright everyone, it's Friday morning. This is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way with Hamish, Tony and Ryan. It's been a kind of long old week, guys, hasn't it? With a couple of Celtic games. We've got one more to go this weekend, then we're into the proper stuff. But looking forward to the game this weekend. I guess we'll come on to it against Chelsea, but I think it'll be more of a test than the Man City game, and we'll maybe explain why that's the case later on. How are you, Tony? How are things?
I'm good, I'm alright, just hoping the dogs can keep quiet. They answered the call just as we came on earlier, didn't they, Hamish? And I was like, oh dear. Yep. That's what mute buttons are for. If they start, I'll mute myself. But yeah, all good at the minute.
They're sounding nice and quiet at the moment. Ryan, how are you?
All good, yeah. Hopefully Paulo Bernardo's close to being finalised. Eventually, it seems as if he's been coming for about 2-3 weeks now when it comes to the reports that are in the media, and the Portuguese media and Scottish media. It looks like it's all come to a head, and he's coming to Scotland, which is pretty good news. So yeah, in a better frame of mind this morning with the fact that it looks as if there's going to be a transfer getting done over the next couple of days.
That's a definite deal that's inched over the line, hasn't it? Inch by inch.
And that's one that we had a fee agreed with Benfica.
And with a rough idea that it was going to happen.
Yeah. The talk is it's going to be £3.5 million. I think that's kind of widely reported now. 5-year deal they're talking for Paulo Bernardo. So that's kind of commonplace with Celtic transfers these days. 30% future sell-on clause held by Benfica. I'm not sure if that's 30% of the profit if we ever sell Bernardo, or whether that'll be 30% of the actual fee that we get if he moves on. But that doesn't kind of faze me, because I think if Bernardo gets to the stage like Jota where he's going for a big move, then it means that he's done really well at the club. So I'm excited to get him in. I think he might actually do quite well this season for us. I think he's kind of forgotten about a little bit in the whole Adamida stuff, and obviously the other positions and Matt O'Reilly and all that stuff. I don't think he was spectacular last season, but I just think we're a little bit more responsibility, opportunity given to Paulo Bernardo. I think he's really got something to give us. So £3.5 million as well, Ryan. Like that's pretty good value for someone like Bernardo, who we kind of know is going to do relatively well for us.
It tells me that he's doing a lot, or he was doing a lot in training as well, to convince Celtic to pay that fee. Now, I know they've had a bit of negotiation. I think a lot of people would have maybe scoffed at the £6 million fee that was getting reported a couple of months ago. 3.5 is a lot better, and if that means that it includes a sell-on clause, then so be it. Then all parties are quite happy. Celtic get the player. Benfica will then get a portion of his next fee, regardless if that's just the solid price or the profit margins that are in that. I think everybody's happy here. Bernardo will get more game time, certainly more game time than he would have if he'd stayed at Benfica, because I just don't think he's a first-team player there at all. I think it's a good move for him. He'll have more responsibility next season, knowing that he's a permanent player rather than just a lone player that can come in and out of games. Be an important European player as well for his movement off the ball and his pressures. Definitely an athlete, definitely a player that can play at that level. It was just all about getting to that physicality in the Scottish League. And once he did, I thought he was one of Celtic's most important players over the festive period. That 4-5 game run, which sort of the game against Rangers and then the game against St Mirren, I remember those two games in particular. He was arguably Celtic's best player on the park. So he's shown what he can do. With Celtic paying the money for him on a permanent basis, it shows that they believe in him, and Brendan Rodgers believes in him. He was quite vocal, but it wasn't just Brendan Rodgers that was talking about him. I remember Callum McGregor after the Scottish Cup final saying that he wanted Bernardo to stay. I think that's a big statement from your captain. If your captain's coming out and saying that he wants a lone player to stay, then he's clearly a good egg, and he's one that the rest of the team in the dressing room appreciate and like. So I'm quite happy with this deal. It's taken longer than I thought it would, but I'm just glad that it's getting over the line, whenever that may be.
A lot of people in the comments, Tony, rightly saying, he's not in yet, it's not been announced. It does. It does very much seem from a report, I think, in Portugal and also in Scotland, that this has now, effectively been completed. I think there was a line in one of the reports saying that personal terms have maybe been the stumbling block over the last week, and that's maybe why things have kind of dragged their heels a little bit. And I've not really got an issue with that. I think Bernardo wants to play for Celtic. He's entitled to try and get the best deal he can for himself, or his agent is. But it seems like it is going to happen now. So, it's kind of imminent.
He provided some big moments in the season. Last campaign, we've spoken about them. Goal against Rangers, his assists in the Scottish Cup final, his assist at Ibrox. He also opened scoring at Dens Park in Dundee when Celtic were drawn 0-0. A 3-0 game kind of let Celtic relax. People kind of forgot about that. He had a kind of purple patch. He was excellent against St Mirren at the New Year game, wasn't he, over the festive period? So, lots of pluses there. Celtic have got him for a cracking fee. I think we spoke when we were speaking about Bernardo, and we said kind of $3.5 million range. That would represent a good piece of business. What's interesting to me, and I've written about it, and it'll be going on the website at 12, was ever since Rodgers spoke about transfers, and he just fired that wee warning shot, that wee kind of message, things are starting to happen. He sort of just said the other night after the Man City game, and he had his say on transfers, and now things are starting to happen. So I think that's quite interesting that he kind of named Chris Mackay and Michael Nicholson being involved in these discussions as well, and all of a sudden things are starting to take shape. So I just, because the timing of it's all a bit, after he said these things, there's movement on Bernardo, and then all of a sudden Hugo Bueno comes from nowhere. We spoke yesterday, there hadn't even been a mention of a left back, either on loan or a permanent transfer, and then Hugo Bueno comes into the equation. So I'm very, it strikes me as wee sabre rattle from Rodgers the other night. It's kind of as if, right, let's click into gear now, let's start pushing the go button and the activate button on certain things that are bubbling away, as Roger said previously. So for me, I think the kind of mechanics of that are interesting to me. So, and as I say, I think there's a piece going out on the website 12 o'clock, Ryan. Yeah, is that right? I believe. Words to that effect. So, long may it continue, because it's a good thing, obviously. Because then Celtic are starting to do business and starting to be linked with players in positions that we want to see. So, that's what pleases me greatly.
Yeah, as I said yesterday, it's frustrating as fans, and we all know we need a left back in. And it's frustrating not having a left back signed, but it's almost more frustrating not even having the whiff of a left back, a name there. But Rodgers did say the other night after the game that the club had targets, so he clearly feels, I think, from the reporting that Hugo Bueno is a left back we want to bring in. Whether we're able to get him in or not, I guess we'll have to wait and see, because it seems, and I've not actually seen this, but I had a few people telling me earlier that apparently there's some Wolves reporter has said that they're not actually keen to loan Bueno out, and it seems very much like Celtic want to loan Bueno in for the season. So there's an obvious clash there with what both clubs want. So does that mean we move on to another player? Does it mean that we buy Bueno permanently? It's going to be interesting. Listen, we'll come on and talk a bit about him. First of all, just our usual sponsor shout out, MPH Boilers and Viessmann. A big thanks to them for sponsoring us. If you're in need of a reliable heating solution, they're the people to go to. Award-winning family-run business, that's MPH. Viessmann have German-engineered boilers that come with a 12-year warranty. You get flexible finance options as well to make your heating upgrade easy and affordable. Links will be in the usual places in the description. Got this as well, guys. Daily shout-out.
Yep, £1 for 6 months, and you enter a chance to win a signed 2023-24 Celtic home shirt All you need to do is subscribe to the Celtic Way. As I said, £1 for 6 months before the 30th of July at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Get this piece of history, the double winning team, signed by most of the players on that team. So if you are interested, then please subscribe. And we thank everybody for the tremendous uptake that we've had so far. And good luck to everybody that's involved. Also, every subscriber that's already subscribed to the channel is automatically entered into this competition, so you won't be missing out regardless.
Fabulous. Yeah, Walker asking, is Hugo Bueno alone with a buy clause? We don't know at this stage. All we know is that Celtic are in talks with Wolves to bring him in on a season-long loan. He's a left-back, 21-year-old left-back, former Spain under-21 international. I say that he's been capped once by them at 21, so not a hell of a lot of appearances. He's kind of second choice left back at Wolves to Ryan Ait-Nouri, so he's in kind of need of game time, and it seems like Celtic have identified him. I think we were in for him in January as well, guys. Is that the case? I don't actually remember that. Do you remember that, either of you? Yes,
I remember his name getting linked. It was just it was a quiet link. It was a bit of a small link, but I think it was late on in the January transfer window. But Celtic were linked with him. This is the second time that his name has been linked with the club. So I guess that does sort of say there is some validity to those links. The fact that the same player has came up twice in 2 windows. Either that or somebody's got a sick sense of humour, linking Celtic with the same player again and again and again. But I have watched this player before. I do watch the Premier League, and I have watched Wolves. He had more of a say a couple of seasons ago than he did last season. Ait-Nouri was playing more for Wolves than Bueno, but I have watched him on occasion, and I think he would be an upgrade on what Celtic currently have at the moment. He's quite an athletic left back. He likes to dribble with the ball at his feet. I think somebody in the comments section said he's 5'11", so that's a height differential of about 4 or 5 inches.
I believe.
Yeah, he's this would be a good signing, but I don't think Celtic would have an option to buy because he's contracted until 2028. So I think Wolves will be wanting quite a sizable fee for their young player, especially because they've developed him since he was 18, 19. I believe 16. He was playing in the 16. I think he was playing in the 4th division or something of Spanish football before joining Wolves. So, you know, they've pretty much raised him since he was a teenager. So they'll be looking for a good fee for him. The fact that he's played semi-regular football in the Premier League too would indicate that he is a first-team player. So it would be an upgrade, but Celtic would need to pay serious money for him, and I don't think they're going to pay that amount. I think they'll look for maybe a loan with potentially an option to buy, but I think the option to buy would be a wee bit unrealistic.
That's the difficulty with the English Premier League when you're signing players from that level, is that even fringe players are going for big money, and money we just can't really afford. I mean, with all due respect, we appear to be trying and failing at the moment to sign a player from the division below the Premier League. Like, the fee seems to maybe be a bit high for us, reading between the lines. So would that matter to you, Tony, the fact that it was only a loan? I'm guessing a lot of fans are going to want a permanent player in it at left back. If someone like Bueno's good enough, would you have him for a season, or would you rather have a more permanent solution?
I would, if we're entering any loan arrangement, I would want loan with an option to buy.
I agree.
Because you're going to have this same conversation in 12 months' time, aren't you? And especially if he does well, So it's if I'm Celtic, I don't entertain a short-term loan without an option to buy clause added onto it, and so the price, whatever it may be, and that is the hardest thing, in terms of he's came up again. I just hope it's not the same lists that we're passing around, player lists, because not done too well with them recently, So, but I guess it's somebody at Celtic. He is a person of interest for Celtic if he's come up twice. I remember the link in January as well. So, but yeah, I wouldn't entertain Hugo Bueno if we've not got a loan option to buy. I just feel that, the players will come in and they might do well, like Adamida. There's a classic example. And now, it's gone cold on that trail, hasn't it? But I still think I'm still pretty confident that Celtic will sign Adam Idah. I just think it's a case of getting nailed down the actual fee and hit personal terms as well. But I did laugh that a man who scored an overhead kick in training and all of a sudden that added value to him. I mean, come on. What a ridiculous thing to say. No, Adam Idah is worth. He scored an overhead kick in training and people were writing that his values just increased because of it. It was just utter nonsense. You know, I couldn't get my head around it. You know what I mean? I was just like, you know, the player will be worth however much Norwich want to sell him for and Celtic want to purchase him for. You know, just because he scored an overhead kick in training doesn't add any value or zeros to his price. It's just that thinking just, it blows my mind, that kind of stuff, you know. It was a cracking goal, granted, but it's in training. But I guess the spotlight and focus is on Adam Idah at this minute with everything that he does. So, but hey, there you have it. But no, I still believe he'll be a player. I'm glad to see Bernardo. I'm just glad to see Celtic linked with a left back, but we all know we need one. But I don't want a short-term solution to an age-long problem. I want a permanent solution to it. And if the club decide they want Hugo Bueno on a short-term loan, then that's up to the club, isn't it? But I'd be tagging option to buy on any loan deal that Celtic or any loan deal arrangement that Celtic enter into. It's just my personal thought.
I think that's kind of been the club's stance in recent years. You think most of the loans have had that they have been loaned to buy. I think Idah is possibly the only one that wasn't the case. I don't know Moritz Jens if we had an option to buy in him or whatever. I feel like we might have done. Obviously Carter Vickers, Jota, Bernardo, that's always been the case. I think Idah was just quite a last minute signing, wasn't he? And obviously it worked out, but looking back, you know, it was really frustrating that we didn't manage to negotiate a fee, because it would have made this summer a hell of a lot easier. So I take your point. I guess the club will know better than us what Hugo Bueno can do, what they want, whether they want a loan for a season, and I saw someone saying earlier, you know, Hugo Bueno for a season and then maybe Kieran Tierney down the line. Like, you never know what the club are thinking with these things. If they think that they can get Bueno permanently, I guess it's just a case of trusting them. That there was a comment in there about Henrik McLarsson saying, you know, what is it about this position that's proven so difficult? And it does really seem to have been a struggle, this whole left back thing. I mean, the last two windows we've not signed a left back, so the club must really have been struggling to get someone in. And is it a case that there's just not many left backs out there that fit what we want to do? I kind of find that hard to believe. Or are we not shopping in the right markets? Or have we been burned by the Bernabei thing and we now want to go a bit more, you know, close to home players with experience of British football? Because it has seemed to be quite a lengthy process to get a left back in, Ryan.
Yeah, and I would hope that they haven't been put off by the Bernabei situation, similarly to the fact that I wouldn't want them to be put off by signing foreign goalkeepers because Vasilis Barkas was a flop at the club. It's a position that will need replacements regardless, because it looks as if Greg Taylor will leave the club at the latest at the end of the season. He's not had any
Do you think?
renewed offer. Yeah, he's only got a year left in his deal and he's not been offered.
I think he'll sign a new deal. I'm pretty relaxed about it.
I think he'll move elsewhere. I think he will move on after next year. I don't know how. I don't know what that's based on. Is it just a hunch, or is it just maybe he wants to try a new challenge? But I just think there needs to be freshness at the left back position. I don't understand why there's a struggle to sign a left back when they found a right back in Alastair Johnston fairly quickly during the World Cup. You know, there was actually an international tournament that was on when Celtic signed that player, so they can find fullbacks. It's not as if it's a special position that only X amount of players can play in. Most teams do play with a left back. There's only a handful of teams that don't have it. The only difference would it be a left back or a left wing back. Basically, every team in professional football plays with fullbacks, so they've all got them. It's just all about finding one that's suitable for Celtic. I'd just like one with a bigger frame that's physically more dominating. I mean, Alastair Johnston isn't that much bigger than Greg Taylor, but he gives that physical battle more. I just want a player that teams won't look to, pick out and try and take advantage of. We've seen that in Europe last season, and then we started to see it with domestic teams that maybe wanted to get something out of Greg Taylor physically and with that lack of height. So it shouldn't be that much of a problem to find a competent left back. It's just all about scouting, and if you can't get your first choice, then go to your second choice quickly. We saw that example a couple of years ago with Matt O'Reilly, where Riley McGree didn't sign for Celtic. Then Celtic instantly went for their second option. Turned out their second option was a lot better than their first option, which maybe asks more questions, to be honest. But they should have a list of players, and if the first one doesn't work out, then go on to the second one and go on to the third one. Being in the middle of July, end of July, and not having a left back at the club, a position that's needed to have been strengthened for at least a year, maybe even two. It just needs to be better on that front. There needs to be more proactiveness when it comes to transfers. But at the same time, I feel like I'm a broken record saying that, because I've been saying this for years about Celtic's transfers, and nothing seems to change in that regard.
Smell the Glove was just raising a point there, Tony. Maybe looking at Bueno for a year, and then Matthew Anderson gets another year somewhere for the future. So I think Matthew Anderson seems to have potential.
Well, see if that's your forward planning. You get Matthew Anderson out on loan to a Scottish Premiership club right now, and you let him play for a year, and you say to whoever signs him, he has to play. And then that, to me, would be joined up thinking, wouldn't it? Like the goalkeepers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would be potentially okay with that, but I would still include an option to buy clause with Bueno. I've got to be honest. Because I think, like Ryan said, I think he's a calibre player that could come in and hit the ground running and do very well. And you'd be heartbroken to part with him come this stage. But if Matthew Anderson is somebody who you earmark for the future, he is only 20, he's showed up well in America, then if he's not first team ready yet and you don't believe, but he's almost there, then you get him out to a St Mirren, a Hibs, somebody, and let him play a whole season of first team Scottish Premiership football so he knows what he's coming back to. And again, I think that there is no substitute for that education. Go and play. Just go and play. Go and play competitive football, and you will come back a better player. You have to. It's in terms of progression. In the education you get, you have to come back a better player, because if you don't, then you won't make it. And I think that's what Rodgers was alluding to with Wilson Lawal. He's come back a better player, but he has to show that he's learned in terms of how he fits into the structure of the Celtic team, the first team, and make the manager make up his mind on him in terms of giving me a headache here. And at this minute, what he's seen, he might have won Player of the Year at Fleetwood, but it's not enough to make him an automatic starter. So if somebody like Matthew Anderson was to go elsewhere, he'd have to come back and say, I'm ready. Because he looks okay. He's looked okay in pre-season friendlies and that, but again, you don't want to get carried away and, and put pressure on the young lad. As I say, he's only 20. Connor Donovan's looked very good as well, hasn't he? I said Connor, it's not Connor, what's his name again? Colby Donovan. Colby, yeah. So, he's looked good and he's only 17. So, again, it's great to see these guys are getting game time and the manager rates them highly. But in order to progress, if they're going to play a part in Celtic's future, then they have to start playing first team football somewhere if they're not going to get it at Celtic.
Yeah, and that's where we want to see an obvious plan to get these players through, because some of them appear to have something about them. And as I've said, I was asked about Matthew Anderson by a scout 3 years ago during a Celtic Rangers kind of youth game at Celtic Park. So he's clearly someone who's shown up in these kind of scout reports for teams, and now we've gradually seen him come through. He's already gone away out on loan and done really well by the sounds of things, and seems to be doing quite well this pre-season. So, what's the plan for him? But I think, first team wise, it's about finding someone, an upgrade on Greg Taylor this season. I think that's what we need at that level. We've all kind of spoken about what we want from a left back. I know kind of a bit of height, bit more drive maybe. I want someone to be able to get to the byline. Listen, Greg Taylor's got a lot going for him. I think he's a really tenacious player, a good passer, really like kind of sticks to the game plan, and has been an important player in our domestic triumphs recently. But I think you're looking for someone just at the next level that's able to go to the byline like Alastair Johnston is. So yeah, that's the transfer stuff, everyone. So there's kind of a little bit more happening. It seems like Bernardo is going to be in. Do you get the impression over the weekend, guys, that'll probably be announced without putting too much pressure on yourselves?
Probably early next week, I would say.
Okay.
Celtic don't really tend to announce players over the weekend, do they? I don't think that's really their style. I would need to look back and look at every single player that they have announced, but they tend to wait until a weekday to announce it. So you would hope that more talks would get done over the weekend if they haven't already done so. And then the player gets announced next week ahead of potentially maybe even featuring on the bench next Sunday against Kilmarnock. It'd be great to have him at Celtic Park, and having that ovation to come onto the park. Definitely want him in before the start of the season. So if he is going to come to the club, then I would want him in early next week so he can be focused on the game against Kilmarnock, because all of a sudden the season's starting and you need your players in. So yeah, if he's going to sign, it'll be early next week in my opinion.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Chelsea this weekend, Tony. It's Saturday night kick-off, 9 p.m. for you guys, 4 p.m. in South Bend, Indiana. 30 degrees Celsius around kick-off time. I looked that up earlier, so it's going to be uncomfortably hot for the players. But as I said at the start, I think this might be a good test for us, and probably more of a test than Man City. I was looking at the Chelsea squad that's been announced for the US tour, and there's a number of names that people will be familiar with: Robert Sanchez, Wesley Fofana, Levi Colwill, Reece James, Ben Chilwell, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Raheem Sterling, Mykhailo Mudryk, who we know about, Christopher Nkunku, who we know about, Nicholas Jackson, Armando Broja. So they appear to have more well-known players in the City team we faced. They did draw 2-2 with Wrexham the other day, so maybe they're not quite at the top level yet. And they do have a lot going on in the background, the Enzo Fernandez kind of regrettable stuff that's been going on there. But it should be a test for us in terms of conditions and opponents, Tony.
30 degrees, wee bit Emmerdale Farm, as they say, i.e. warm. But yes, indeed, I'm looking forward to that test as well. I hope Celtic win so they can just have a 100% record on the tour. That'd be brilliant.
Until we go to the Champions League.
Until we go to the Champions League.
English team will beat us.
Yeah. But certainly in terms of morale boosting, it would be great if they could reel off 3 wins. Those players that you rhymed off there, yeah. Incredible pedigree. There's some top talent there, but you say it's early in Chelsea's pre-season, isn't it? Celtic are a wee bit further down the line with their preparations, but I want to see them play the same way they played in the first half against Manchester City for hopefully over 90 minutes. Hopefully they can sustain it, but I guess it would be very difficult in that heat and there'll be a lot of changes. But I just want to see those behaviours and those patterns that they played, and shifting the ball at pace and getting the likes of Kuhn on his bike, 1-on-1, something like that. I want to see all that again. And because I thought in the first half it was excellent, that template that they set, their passing was accurate, they kept the ball, and they were really dangerous every time they went forward, or they looked dangerous, against quality players. So it's a step up in quality in terms of Chelsea's squad and the one they've named for their part of the tour. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but I want to see that Celtic can sustain it again, and then you will see that that one, they're starting to learn, they're starting to listen to the manager and play the way that he wants, with that pace, power, penetration that I spoke about yesterday, all of those things. And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing more than anything, Hamish. But in that heat, that'll be hard to sustain that for a great length of time, won't it, when you think about it?
Yeah, as I say, it's going to be sweltering at that time, isn't it? 4 p.m. kick-off local time, so we should bear that in mind, Ryan. But we do want to see a continuation of what we've seen so far in pre-season. I want to see Nicholas Kuhn in that team again. Natalie bringing up that he was potentially injured. He came off at half time, but I believe he's been in full training since then, so he'll be good to go for tomorrow, and just see more of that midfield working together. O'Reilly, Hatate, McGregor against a decent, a good team, and hopefully can improve ourselves and just get as much confidence as we can for both the start of the domestic season, but also for the Champions League further down the line, knowing that we can compete with good teams.
Yeah, 2024 and Enzo Maresca and Celtic are finally meeting, and it feels like something that could have happened a lot sooner when you look at past links, both in 2021 and in 2023. It's going to be an interesting game, definitely a step up. I'll say this, it's a step up in opposition because of the level of players that the opposition has at their disposal at this moment in time. Manchester City only had like a small clutter of their superstars, but it's more of Chelsea's first team, and they've got more of an eye on youth players at the moment. Chelsea, if you follow Fabrizio Romano at all, you know that every second day Chelsea have signed a young player from Brazil or Argentina, etc., and maybe even loaned them out. So they're an interesting team to watch, but they do have some household names: Raheem Sterling, Enzo Fernandez, Mudryk. It's going to be a step up, but a good test for Celtic. I think it's great preparation for the game next Sunday against Kilmarnock. It's really, it should be a good game. Should have a good attendance as well. Celtic and Chelsea. I'm just hoping it's a good test and good preparation for next week's game. That's no injuries would be absolutely tremendous. Yeah. The result is secondary, but I would like Celtic to keep that good feeling going and get another couple of goals and maybe get a win. It was good to see Kuhn back in full training as well. There was a video of him training, so it looks as if he will be fine for that game. The worst thing for him would be to get an injury at this point when his momentum is on an upwards trend. At this point in time, he will be starting against Kilmarnock next Sunday, you would say. So he'll want to keep that going, maybe get another goal to his name or an assist, and really show Brendan Rodgers that he is ready for this season. Because if he keeps it going, then it's very much tongue-in-cheek, but he will feel like a new signing because it'll feel like the real Kuhn has arrived at the club, the one that Celtic did sign in January and that they were hoping that would have an extended sort of impact on the team. He did have an impact to an extent, but it's all about consistency. If you can keep that going from now until the end of this season, then a lot of people will be looking back on this pre-season with happiness, knowing that a really good player has finally arrived at the club after a really difficult start.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him. And Carter Vickers as well. Hopefully Tony will maybe get a first glimpse of the fridge this season.
Yes, it'd be good to have him back in that defence. You sleep easily and breathe more easily when he's in the heart of that defence, don't you? You just do. It is what it is. But it'd be good to see him feature against Chelsea and just kind of solidify that back line.
Yeah. And then we'll be through next week looking ahead to competitive stuff, guys. It's kind of strange, isn't it? It's I can't wait to actually watch competitive football again. It's felt like a really long summer, this one, for some reason.
Yeah, one thing I'm interested about on Sunday, I don't think it will happen, or Saturday going into Sunday with the game. Alastair Johnston is in America at the moment with his teammates. He was at the Manchester City game. We don't expect him to actually play in the game
Rodgers
against
has said that
Chelsea. I know
that he won't. So I'd assume he's just there. He might have been visiting home or whatever, and just kind of dropped in to see Celtic on the way or whatever. I don't think you'll see him because Rodgers just said that, didn't he?
His season was extended. Yeah. His season was extended to the other week, wasn't it? Yeah, I agree, Ryan. Yeah. I just think he likes being in and around his teammates, doesn't he? But to be fair, let's be honest, that kind of team spirit.
I just like what he brings in every single element, to be honest. I like what he brings on the park, his tenaciousness. I like what he brings off the park in terms of the way he conducts interviews, the way he is with his teammates. Clearly in the dressing room, he's a popular member of the squad, and the fact that he's even going to pre-season trips when he doesn't even need to. He could be anywhere. He could be on holiday just now, but he's chosen, after getting engaged, no less, with his girlfriend. So it just shows the commitment to the cause. And if every player was like Alastair Johnston, not that I'm saying there's an attitude problem at all at Celtic, but if every player was like Alastair Johnston, then you'd really be getting somewhere, because he is tenacious and he's definitely someone that you can rely on game by game, both on and off the pitch.
I think Alastair Johnston's going to rival Ria Tati for Ryan's favourite player this season. What do you think, Hamish?
Oh, you've got a few, Ryan. You get Lewis Palmer as well.
Brilliant. I love what he brings to the team. He's another heartbeat of the team. I know Cal McGregor does get labelled with that, Hugo as well, Matt O'Reilly too. But in terms of that defensiveness, he initiates the tempo at the back. He is always running. I think it was a brilliant signing, and he after a bit of a downward period, he's back to his best, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing what he can do under Brendan Rodgers next season. I think it could be a real breakout season for him.
Yeah, Brown Warrior is mentioning Burger Melling. That's a throwback. Is he even linked with us again? God, that is
probably too old now.
He's up there with Cadlich, isn't he? And Hakin Yakin and all these people. Stephen Fletcher and
you can get linked for Bojan in the window regardless. If it's Bojan Kirkic, if it's Bojan Miovski, if it's Bojan, Celtic are probably interested in him, or there's a rumour about him.
Yeah, always the same. But there you go.
Right. Okay. We'll call
before we go, Hamish, before we go, I wanted to say something. Look out for a new podcast coming along at the weekend. Yes, myself and the wonderful Kevin McKenna. We thought us two being the Celtic dads of the podcast, we would try and cater for those of a certain vintage, and it's called For It's a Grand Old Team to Pod For, or emphasis on the grand and old team. And the first one is be up on the site over the weekend. Won't it, Ryan? Ryan has to do the bizzle with all the kind of stuff with it. But yeah, and we talk about 10 men winning the league. 10 men won the league. And that'll be up over the weekend. Grand old team with myself and Kevin McKenna. And moving forward, we'll be doing that as a regular thing. So yeah, if you want a new podcast, on the Celtic
just
Way,
on this channel, people
on this channel,
on
this channel, the Celtic Way, and it'd be myself and Kevin in conversation, just talking about an event, a game from the past, Celtic's illustrious history. And if you're interested in that, you can tune into that. So yeah, enjoyed the first one last night. Bang on an hour and 12 seconds. So tremendous. I really enjoyed it. It was good fun.
So that'll be surfacing at some stage over the weekend.
Some point over the weekend, yeah. So if you
can check that,
you fancy it,
that'll fill an hour of your weekend. Everyone
listening to
Tony and Kevin. So that sounds good. And you guys will be doing stuff over the weekend, is that right, as well, in terms of the game?
Yeah, pre and post match against Chelsea. So it'll be a busy weekend on the Celtic Way, but we wouldn't want it any other way. Everyone will be watching the game anyway. It's a better time for it, definitely better than 12:30. So it means we'll get finished a wee bit earlier too, which will definitely help me. It was very, very late finishing off that game against Manchester City. So yeah, 9 p.m. is a lot better than 12:30 when it comes to working after the final whistle. So instant analysis will be there, player ratings will be there, as well as what Brendan Rodgers has to say after the game. So stay tuned for that, or that'll be on the website.
And hopefully we get a stream and I don't keep messaging Ryan saying pop-ups, I can't get rid of the pop-ups. He's like, getting rid of them all. He's like hitting buttons. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, yes, well, bear with it. And somehow miraculously I managed to get the stream, so all good.
I hope you've not outed yourself there in front of thousands of people.
I know, no need for pop-ups.
I know, you're using a legitimate means, of course, Tony.
Of course, I was. You know that. So just couldn't get it. Couldn't get the game on my computer, but we got there in the end. So it's all good. Indeed.
Fabulous. Right. Okay. On that note, let's head off. Thanks for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. And as you say, you guys will be busy over the weekend. I'll be back on Monday as we start the build up to the competitive action starting. Speak to you then.